The Journey to Parenthood by Sol1dF3rr3t. Sweetie Belle giggled lightly as she felt the crayon being scribbled on the side of her stomach through a piece of paper. The small laughter hit the drawer's ear and made him smile a little to himself. The crayon held in his mouth, rotating a little as his lips curled. It was a joyous sound that the two learned to love almost as much as each other. Button Mash scribbled some more on his wife and laid on the soft blanket spread across the floor. She read a book as the radio played soothing music that filled the room. "Why are you doing this?" she asked finally. Turning her head a little, the mare couldn't even face her husband, since he was dead set on drawing. "What else can I do?" he moaned in boredom and impatience, almost like a child. The answer made Sweetie Belle laugh as she turned to see what he was drawing. A paper was taped on her side that showed a small bar that was nearly full with 90%, written as well, causing her to laugh. Button stared at it with a heavy amount of focus, almost as if he believed the bar would fill a little, and the number would change to 91%. "Oh, Button," she said as she turned around and nuzzled him, watching her horn to make sure she didn't poke his eye out. He smiled warmly as he laid on his back and onto the pillow in the middle of the room. "I thought I'd do something fun with it," he told her. "Well," she looked and actually chuckled at the drawing. Who else but Button to make it a part of a video game? It was a good way of coping. The two had the actual pregnancy planned, but even Button felt like he wasn't ready. Nights were spent with him lying awake in bed while wondering if he could be a father while watching over his wife. Eventually, Sweetie Belle gave him a pep talk, saying that she watched her sister and Spike raise a child together, and knew that if it was true love was involved, everything would work out as planned. "I love it," she told him as she laid her head onto his stomach. "And you've been great dealing with it." Button gave himself a smile of accomplishment for what he had to deal with. "Button, we need cake," Sweetie yelled frantically. "There's no cake! To the store!" she shrieked. "You don't love me!" She curled into a puddle after she refused to go to the store. "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry I accused you of such a thing," she said as she got to her knees and begged for forgiveness. Elapsed time equals 2 minutes. Button stuttered at the memory. The two married when they both got out of school. Sweetie Belle discovered her talent for singing and went on to perform small shows, but going on to open up for the Sapphire Shores and even a duet with electronic musicians Electric Notes. Button Mash always loved video games, but never knew that he would end up making them. He studied design at school and went on to work at Sony. To this day, he was still amazed at working on such things he enjoyed heavily as a child. The two had been together since they were both a colt and filly. Sweetie Belle remembered them playing video games, and for the first time she kissed his cheek, until he froze up and turned red and can barely speak with the most adorable thing she had ever seen. Sweetie Belle did it every now and then, making the boy love-struck every time. Then came the time he kissed her instead. It was after they got their cutie marks and were growing up. It was the night of the dance. She remembered how nervous he was when he approached her, how he started to shake a little as he told how much he liked her, and if she wanted to go to a movie the next day, and Sweetie Belle couldn't have been happier. She looked into his eyes as he leaned forward, causing her to nervously lean forward and lock lips with him. 5 years later, he had proposed to her, giving him tearful responses as she threw her hooves around him and could barely contain her happiness. Oh, how Rarity designed her very own dresses with tears in her eyes, some staining the paper that made her throw it in the trash, since she didn't want to have a tear-stained paper with her little sister's dress. Rarity planned the biggest and most amazing dress before her sister told her she wanted something basic that matched her color, and for once, Rarity nodded her head and redesigned it. Sweetie Belle was amazed at how much her sister couldn't argue over the dress. They had an outside wedding. As she walked down the aisle, Applejack's daughter, throwing flower petals. Button nearly fainted at the sight, being caught by a rumble, the best man, and back to the ceremony. As Button was about to say his vows, a loud cry erupted from the seats. Button looked at the bride with a smile and gave her the notion to wait a second as he ran over and gave his tearful mother a big hug, who was nearly screaming. Apple Bloom and Scootaloo cried a little. just as Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle did at her big wedding. Sweetie Belle knew exactly where she wanted the honeymoon. She visited the place once and loved the colors that fell around it. She wanted to stay at the resort at Rainbow Falls. The colorful and bright environment made for the happiest week the newlywed couple had ever had. They bathed in rainbow juice at one moment, looked at the sights, and spent a few days in the rooms, ordering room service and watched movies. During so, Button ended up splashing a little into Sweetie Belle's eyes. Oh, how he apologized and kissed it for how many hours on end. She couldn't get over how sorry he felt and how eager he was to make it up to her. They spent hours on the hillside and watching as the mist formed the brightest rainbows any pony could see right before their eyes. Being in their company for something that made it even better. 2.5 years later, they decided to have a foal. After seeing the confirmed pregnancy test, the two knew it was the exact part in their journey through life together. A heavy thud was felt inside Sweetie Belle's stomach, making her gasp. "She's kicking!" Button corrected, making his wife roll her eyes. "But really?" he asked excitedly. Sweetie rolled on her back as Button put a hoof on the stomach, feeling a soft kick through her coat. He laughed at knowing that it was going to be born soon. Button wanted a colt, while Sweetie Belle hoped for a daughter. The two had a brief argument at the subject before, eventually letting it go. Button then began to rub her wife's stomach, making her sigh with pleasure, then tickling with both hooves, making her squeal out in laughter. "Am I interrupting something?" Rarity asked as she walked in. Knowing Button was going back to work soon, the couple decided to stay at Rarity's. Button turned red, always getting nervous when Rarity saw the two together. He had only stayed here once when they were little and he was sick. When he became a teen, Rarity forbid him to stay overnight. "Nothing, Rarity," Sweetie Belle groaned. "Well, I'm going to bring some cheese and crackers," she said as she set the plate on the table. "What are we, 6? Ooh, pepperjack!" Button exclaimed as he dug into the crackers. The two ate snacks while listening in the radio. Sweetie Belle sang along while Button listened while swaying back and forth to the sound of her voice. Eventually, the two had laid back down together, falling asleep. They told each other, "I love you, Button," Sweetie Belle said with a smile. "I love you too," he responded. The two fell asleep, having a blanket put on them by Rarity, who smiled and walked away, leaving the two to enjoy each other.